Last night, it was the NBA. Today, it's the NHL. A trio of pretty big trades happening on draft week in the National Hockey League. We'll break them all down here on an emergency podcast with Couch Potato Diary. All right, welcome everyone to Couch Potato Diary. We, of course, are presented by Sea of Dead. Head over to seaofdead403.ca. Grab that great Calgary swag. And Calgary swagging up their roster a little bit. Forced transition, but we'll roll with it. As the Flames make the move, acquiring Simon Nemec from the New Jersey Devils. The first of three pretty sizable moves in the NHL today. So we're going to break them all down here. I was on radio live in Calgary when the Nemec trade happened. I was able to break it to the Calgary listeners with incredible amounts of professionalism, where I just went, oh, whoa. So that's the general reaction, but we'll break down all of them here. If you want to get in touch with me on social media, I am at Primetime Klein on Instagram, X, TikTok, Threads, and Blue Sky. That's Primetime, and then Klein is Klein. You can hit me up on YouTube. Just search Couch Potato Diary on YouTube. It's youtube.com/@CouchPotatoDiary. And check out the podcast. Search Couch Potato Diary on Spotify, on Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your pods. So let's get right into it. The Calgary Flames are in rebuilding mode, but that doesn't mean they're not looking to trade their picks, as they trade a handful of them to the New Jersey Devils for Simon Nemec in a really surprising blockbuster deal. Let's break it down here, starting with what the Flames are thinking. So I just have to say, I am surprised at the negativity around this trade from a Flames standpoint that I'm seeing online right now. The sticker shock would be there, no question about it, as Calgary trades a pair of first-round picks plus a second-round pick and Etienne Morin to the New Jersey Devils in exchange for Nemec and another player. But I think when you look at it, if you break it down piece by piece by piece, I think this is a home run deal for the Flames. You get Nemec. I get maybe a reach as a second overall pick in 2022, but he was going to be a top 10 pick in that year's draft. Hasn't necessarily clicked in New Jersey, but it's been a bit of a tough go for the Devils developmentally over the last little bit, and it felt like the vibes were off out in New Jersey for a lot of this season. So, You are taking, I think, an extremely worthwhile gamble on a guy who already would be like a number one defenseman on your team and would probably profile out as, like, at worst, a top four defenseman in the NHL. And you are adding him to your team for, yes, 2 first-round picks. But it is a 27 pick for Vegas, who we are presuming are going to be very good again next season after getting to within a couple of wins of the Stanley Cup final. And it's a 28 first-round pick from the Colorado Avalanche, who, again, we're going to assume are going to be quite good for the next little bit with that McKinnon guy and probably Makar on the roster for a little bit. And if they're not, and if they suck, then it's top 10 protected. Both of them are top 10 protected. So it's not going to be a devastating move for Calgary anyway. So I think for those, it makes sense. They give up a second round pick this year. It is the highest of their second round picks, but they had 4 of them. It was the 35th overall pick, so now they have to wait all the way until the 36th overall pick in the draft to go in the second round and make what is right now their third selection of the draft, as they draft 30th as well, with holding on to Vegas's pick, this one from the Noah Hannafin trade. And then Etienne Morin had just kept getting passed on the depth chart a little bit. A player who at one point a little excited about, but just wasn't necessarily clicking. At one point even heading down to the ECHL. So yeah, like it's a bunch of stuff for Nemec. And the Flames aren't necessarily in trade a bunch of stuff for a dude mode. But when you look at all the pieces, it is all coming from a place of surplus for Calgary. And it is bringing in a 22-year-old who, like, if they sign him to an 8-year deal, he's going to be Darren Radish's age by the time the contract is up. So you give him now an opportunity to get consistent top 4, if not top pair minutes for a guy who has shown that when he gets bigger workloads, he can actually be pretty effective. So you get that, and you're not giving up anything that feels like it's going to come back to bite you. Like, could there be a sum of the parts that does end up passing Nemec? I suppose. But given the protections on the draft picks and everything like that, I would be very surprised if Nemec isn't the best player involved in this trade when we look back on it 5, 10, 15 years from now. Some questions about what is next for the Flames. I think a lot of those answered. Craig Conroy was on Flames Talk with Pat Steinberg and Logan Gordon today, talking about, like, Parekh actually feels pretty comfortable on the left side, so you can go ball Nemec Whitecloud Parekh, and then Brustevich, Mata, Kuznetsov kind of cycling through that last spot, or the last couple of spots there on your blue line, and you're feeling pretty set about that. So the Flames aren't necessarily in a spot where they need to trade someone away right now. I do think still there's a non-zero chance they try to package one of the right shot defensemen and either move up in the draft from either the sixth overall pick. That would be admittedly a little bit more difficult, or from that 30th pick and trying to move up a little bit. Like I still think that could be in the realm of possibilities. But if they start the season with this blue line, I don't think that they're going to be devastated by what they didn't do. The one thing I do think it affects in this draft, I know you can't just say, oh, well, we're good here, especially as the Flames, right? Like, you can't just say, no, we're good at right shot D. But I do wonder if it takes a right shot D off of the list for them. Like, I guess if Keaton Verhoff is there have been a lot of talk about the Flames being pretty excited about this kid. And at one point, he was even threatening to be the number one ranked player in this draft right around the World Junior Hockey Championship. So I get, like, if he is there, and presumably he would be, then maybe they still go that way. But I think it makes it a little bit more realistic that Viggo Bjork, the center, ends up being the one that the Flames make the selection on and going with it that way. So that, to me, is kind of the effect of this. But overall, I really like this deal for Calgary. They gave up a bunch of stuff, and it's stuff that kind of looks pretty. But if you look at each one individually, I don't think anything adds up to close to Nemec. And I think for the Flames, he fits the timeline. He is 22 years old. He fits a style of play that they like. An offensive defenseman. He can join the rush, help them out 5-on-5. He'll probably be on the second power play unit as well. So it gives them a pretty good runway with a 22-year-old. And look, if it's not good, then I'm not saying you could get all four of those things back in a trade, but someone's going to take a chance on a 25-year-old right shot defenseman and be like, oh, we could fix that guy. You know, like Darnell Nurse might get traded here in the next little bit. You can trade dudes. So if it's not clicking, or if Brustevich and Parekh are just undeniable on the right side, and now Nemec becomes expendable, then you can move him again. But I think that this is the exact type of a player that the Flames should be taking chances on to try to build up their roster. And this is the type of move that you make to try to help it out so that you're not as reliant on ping pong balls. They still need that number one center. There's no question about it. But this makes you a little less reliant on those things when you can acquire players like this. And I think it's a very good use of the extreme amounts of surplus that the Flames build up draft-wise. And honestly, like from a New Jersey standpoint, I don't love it. Like they have excess guys, and the contract negotiation would have been a little bit tricky with Nemec, but I think the more moves are to come for them to try to package this together and get back into the win column and back into the postseason for next year. But what do you guys think? Like, seeing online, I am surprised, but it feels like I'm on a bit of an island on this one. So let me know what you guys think from a Flame standpoint, from a Devil standpoint, and how do you think this affects things going forward? Let me know in the comments here on YouTube or on social media at Primetime Klein on Instagram, X, TikTok, Threads, and Blue Sky. Also, if you are watching this on YouTube, make sure you hit that like button, hit subscribe as well, trying to grow the channel, and so those things really do help us out if you are able to do that. The day of blockbusters in the NHL continued with the St. Louis Blues moving franchise cornerstone Jordan Kyrou to the Washington Capitals. A bit of a surprising contender comes out with a very exciting player that leaves a lot of questions. So let's talk about a very interesting move between Washington and St. Louis. So Jordan Kyrou, one of the big names on trade boards a lot, ends up on the move as he goes to the Washington Capitals. The trade coming in, this one was happening while I was getting ready to do this other stuff, so not as familiar with it just yet, but it is... Jordan Kyrou, the right winger, traded to Washington in exchange for Connor McMichael, Milton Gastrin, and the 16th overall pick in the 2026 NHL entry draft. So Kyrou to Washington. This is not a move I was expecting. You see Washington make the Karlsson trade last year, and it felt like they were going maybe in a little bit of a rebuild direction. Ovi probably done. Let's start to look at the future here a little bit. And then they go out and make a very much a win-now move in bringing in Jordan Kyrou. Now, look, I love Kyrou as a player. I think he's fantastic. This is them saying, we're going for it. Still, we want to be competitive. We want to be good. We are going to try to just bridge right from Ovi into another very successful season here with this hockey club. It's a bit of a steep price, but Kyrou is that good. You know, like we are not talking about, oh, well, maybe this guy. No, this is genuinely a very, very high level hockey player here in the NHL. He brings speed and a real high offensive upside with him and a very good playmaking ability as well to Washington. So very excited to see how he fits in with this Capitals team. And honestly, just have to kind of rejig where I think the Capitals are going to be this upcoming season. So a really exciting move there for Washington. And on the St. Louis side, they're obviously going in a rebuild direction. They're obviously going to try to get younger and just, yeah, in a tear down rebuild sort of a thing. These are three very good pieces. Gastrin was a second-round pick in last year's draft, 37th overall, I believe. McMichael, a pretty good young player, hasn't necessarily scratched the surface on what he can be, but there's, I think, a real upside there. And the 16th overall pick that gives this team now 4 picks in the first round of this NHL entry draft. So they control a lot of the cards right now here. They could go with both Ruck twins based on where those picks are landing. They could try to package a few and move up into a couple of different places here. So a very interesting move for St. Louis that to me kind of came out of nowhere. But I like it for Washington, but I now have to reassess where they're at. And I like it for the Blues. And now they become one of the more interesting teams to watch coming up at Friday's draft. So a lot to cover on the show, and a lot to cover with this trade. What do you guys think? Because like I said, this one kind of caught me off guard. So we're just kind of reacting to it here in the moment. Again, who's getting the win? Washington, St. Louis? Let me know in the comments. And while you're at it, share this video with your hockey fan friends. We are looking to grow Couch Potato Diary, and hitting that share button really does help us out there. So, yeah, if you could move this along to some other hockey fan friends. Love the community we've built here with Couch Potato Diary, but just want you guys to have more people to talk to. So, holy smokes, what a day in the NHL. For the second time in a few days, the Ottawa Senators making a big move as they have acquired William Eklund from the San Jose Sharks for the 9th overall pick. It is a move that feels like it came out of nowhere, but one that you can kind of squint at and have it make some sense from both sides. Let's break it down. So Ottawa uses the 9th overall pick that they got in the Brady Tkachuk deal, and they have moved it to the San Jose Sharks in exchange for William Eklund. There are other pieces involved in this one, but those two are the particulars. I love this from the Ottawa Senators. There was a lot of talk that they were looking at Jason Robertson. Robertson's a year away from unrestricted free agency. He's probably not looking to sign a long-term contract. And Ottawa, if they're going to give up something, they want a little bit of cost control, and not necessarily even cost control, but just club control, right? So that kind of is out. And so now you go to Eklund, who looks like he could be a studly stud. Like he looks like he could really be a bit of a game changer. And honestly, like I probably not, but there's part of me that wonders, would you just trade Brady Tkachuk for Eklund straight up? Because of like the high level potential that he could have. Brady, all the stuff we talked about with him the other day, and how I'm not necessarily the biggest Brady Tkachuk fan in the world. And like just really kind of not reset the clock, but still keep you competitive while also having another wave of young talent coming through with Eklund there. So I love this move for Ottawa. I think it's a fantastic pivot coming off of the Brady Tkachuk news that they've moved him to the San Jose or to the Florida Panthers. On the San Jose side, I'm a little surprised that they're happy to move off of Eklund here, but looking at it, this now opens the door for them to get Ivar Stenberg at the number 2 selection and not necessarily not miss a beat, but Stenberg has a pretty high projection and a lot of people had him as the number 1 prospect going into like February, March. So you add him at 9, there's still probably going to be a solid defenseman there. So you're not like pigeonholed into getting just Reed and then a Tynan Lawrence, Victor Bjork or whoever, a little bit later on. This gives them a lot of flexibility. Or are they going to be aggressive with 2 and 9 and make some type of a very, very, very big splash? Like a Dylan Larkin or something like that. That would probably be too much. But I wonder what this opens the door for them now. It at least gives them a lot more flexibility and options. So a little surprised because that's a good player out the door, but it adds a lot of intrigue now for San Jose and Mike Grier and what they might end up doing. So it's nuts and it's fascinating, and I absolutely love that we got this jump start to the offseason rolling here. So what do you guys think, though? Because this is, again, a big move from Ottawa and San Jose. Who gets the dub on your side? Is it the Sens? Is it the Sharks? Let me know in the comments, and we can keep the conversation going over there. Also, if you are watching this on YouTube, did you know that you can bring Couch Potato Diary with you wherever you go? Just search it in podcast form on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts. All right, that's the show. I got a baseball game to go to, so we're going to call it here. Hopefully more news. I mean, hopefully more news does break as the week goes on, but hopefully they let me at least get to Okotoks before we have to wrap this one up and make another something like this. But thank you guys so much for tuning in to the podcast. Happy we've been able to get some more of these out over the last little bit. Next step is to go live. Hoping to be able to do that here very, very soon. But yeah, hit me up on social media. I'm at Primetime Klein on Instagram, X, TikTok, Threads, and Blue Sky. If you are watching this on YouTube, hit that like button, hit subscribe, and leave a comment about the show, what you liked, what you didn't like, and what you would like to see from this going forward. Because again, really looking to grow this thing here in 2026, even though if the most recent output may not suggest that. And in podcast form, thank you guys for tuning in. Make sure you rate, review, and subscribe wherever you are tuning in to this one today. We'll see when we get to do this again. It might be in 20 minutes. Who knows? It's been a wild few weeks in the sports world. Thank you guys so much for hanging out today. Talk to you all later.